Just want to say thanks for having me come down. Thanks, Memphis Rocks, for putting this whole thing together. It's really awesome. It's nice to be back in Chattanooga. I lived here like 10 years ago, and it's so good, dude. The Rock is amazing. Um, so I'm just gonna. I wanted to share my struggles with addiction and just kind of coming out the other side of that and kind of regaining the things I love. And if you guys are able to relate to any of that, feel free to chat with me after the meeting or yeah, whatever. I hope you get something out of it. It's like to see y'all. Um, woo! So growing up, I was a pretty weird kid, and it just and growing up, it always felt. Sorry, I'll restart. I just always felt really different, and I always beat myself up, and I had a really hard time just being okay with myself. And I always compared myself to other kids, and just I never really fit in. It always felt weird, and it always felt like there was something wrong. Um, by like 9 years old, I was anorexic and just had a full blown eating disorder, and I didn't really know how to cope with that. I was in fourth grade, and I kind of just it kind of robbed my whole childhood, to be honest. At 13, I found climbing though, and it kind of changed my life. It gave me a safe place to kind of figure out who I was, what I like to do, and oddly enough, it was a form of exercise I didn't have to control. So that was really cool, and not a lot of people did it. And so it was a place for me to just kind of be alone and figure myself out. Um, with that, when I was 18, I decided I was going to go to App State in Boone, North Carolina, and that was kind of the first time that I met like-minded people and had peers that wanted to rock climb. And I noticed adults that they didn't work 9 to 5s really. They didn't have kids, and they just lived a totally different lifestyle. And I kind of just I dove completely into climbing, and the goal was to just be a professional climber. I didn't really know what that meant, but that's what I like doing, and that's what I wanted to do. Um, I tried to do well in school, but after 2 years of academic probation, I wasn't doing so hot, and I was like, well, maybe I have some ADD, maybe I have some problems, and so I got prescribed some Adderall. It kind of it kind of took over almost immediately. There was some good. It gave me confidence and all these other things that I thought I just didn't have in myself. Um, and I kind of rode that wave for a couple years and tried to do a lot better in school. It kind of helped me with school, but I don't know. It just doing well academically has just never been my thing. It's always been really tough for me to get focused and learn that way. Um, but after I was like 3 years through undergrad, they started offering degrees online, and so I just jumped to the opportunity. I was just like, "Oh, cool, school without having to be at school, sweet. I'll go ahead and get the piece of paper." And so I started taking classes online, and I decided to move to Boulder, Colorado, to help get a company called Louder and 11 going. I had a really hard time. I was really overwhelmed in Boulder. I had a hard time being around the scene, and my drug use was just progressively getting worse at that point, and I didn't last very long there. I ended up back in Boone maybe 8 months later or something, and I was really devastated. That was kind of the first thing that I felt like I could show my parents that I was doing something and that I could kind of relate to people with, because I don't know, climbing rocks, it's like climbing with people that unless you're out with people that climb, not a lot of people can relate to you. And 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 it was really devastating that didn't work out for me. I beat myself up a lot for that, and I ended up back in Boone. I decided I was going to go back to school, and but kind of because of that failure, or what I thought was a giant failure, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be good at climbing. That was going to be my route, and that was going to be the way that I was going to show my academically gifted parents that I was doing well in something. Um, and I didn't do well with the amount of pressure I put on myself. I started lying about doing boulders, and and my drug use just getting worse, and I kind of just hit a small bottom there. Eventually, I just moved to Chattanooga, where, I mean, I feel like at the time that, like, you came to Chattanooga if you wanted to get good at rock climbing back then, and you climbed at TBA, and you climbed with Jimmy Webb, and you climbed with that crew, and that's what you did. And so I was like, all right, this is my route. This is what I'm going to do. Um, and I had promised myself that I was going to get my drug use under control. I think the best I got was like maybe taking what I was prescribed, but I I didn't. I could never do it on my own, dude. It just went downhill really fast all the time. Um, One day I was out here climbing with some friends, and I fell and hurt my back, and that was the first injury that kind of took me out for like more than 3 or 4 days, and it just kept hurting, and I didn't understand what was wrong, and I just felt like this whole idea of this whole route of I'm going to do climbing was just kind of over. Luckily, an opportunity came up to go manage a small climbing gym in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and so me and a buddy moved back for that. Unfortunately, there were a lot of false promises there, and it just didn't work out. And and that was kind of the second big failure, kind of like Louder than 11, where I just felt like I can't do anything that like I feel like I'm capable of, and all my peers are going on with like route setting careers or starting families or getting involved in some new mega gym that has some longevity of something. And I just didn't know why it wasn't working out, and it didn't make I kept blaming myself, and my drug use just got worse and worse, and by that point my back was I couldn't really walk without pain, and I just thought that at that point it just felt like everything I cared about was just done, and so I completely dove into drugs. They had similar it had similar parallels to climbing, where I kind of liked the sacrifice that went towards getting drugs. It was very similar to like sacrificing everything to go do a rock climb or stick a move. Like that level of obsession was there for drugs, and it helped me feel less alone, and it allowed me to feel like I was working towards something, even though it was just getting trashed all the time and doing whatever. Um, I ended up I decided after the Chapel Hill gym thing fell through that I was going to go back to Boone, and I was going to try and finish school. Oh, sorry about that. I was going to try and finish school. I had like 2 classes left, and I could get my degree, and I could make my parents proud, and then I could just have nothing but drugs to worry about, and I could just fade off and kind of end things. Um, Somehow I finished school, and I was on this path of do a bunch of pills till you die. And I did that for about a year, and then one day I'd had enough. I was just sitting in the student rec center, like where I used to climb, just drunk, talking to the smoothie lady, and I was like 28 years old, and I was just like, dude, I can't do this anymore. So my parents came and picked me up. I went to rehab, and if people don't know really what rehab is, it's just kind of like a safe space to kind of withdraw off of substances. It helps teach you structure and kind of just getting a routine of consistent sleep, 3 meals a day, waking up, kind of holding yourself accountable, and just getting through those first like 30 days of just not having a substance. And I completed that, and I decided I was going to go to a halfway house in Asheville. I relapsed almost immediately when I got there, and I hadn't really given up on the idea that I just wasn't different. I thought I just kept thinking that I was different, and I was so embarrassed and so bummed at just like what my life had turned into, and I just didn't give myself any credit really for making it through rehab, and I relapsed really quickly, and I got kicked out of my halfway house. They sent me to detox again. I got kicked out of there for not cooperating, and my aunt happened to live in Asheville, and I just begged her to let me sleep on her couch for a night. I didn't have anywhere to go. Everyone was kind of done with me. The next morning, I called my brother, and who had been clean for 3 years at the time. He came and scooped me up, and we drove east to Greensboro, North Carolina. and he kind of just gave me an ultimatum. He was like, "This is kind of it. If you don't get it this time, I can't talk to you anymore." And I had seen him, man. He had been like in and out of prison doing drugs his whole like high school, early adult life, and he had learned something different, you know. And so I was like, I'll give it a try, man. And that first year and a half, I didn't climb at all. I just kind of dove into the recovery community and just really wanted to learn who I was and try to have a normal life. And honestly, I was scared of trying to have a normal life and also be a rock climber. I'd always been a rock climber who just quit everything immediately if like anything got in the way of like a weather window. And I was afraid to try to balance both. Um, After like a year and a half, my brother's friend bugged me enough to go climbing with him, and I decided I'd start giving it a try. There was a little gym in Greensboro. If anyone's from that area, Tumblebees, a small little gym. It reminded me of the first gym I climbed at that just had no one there, and it just allowed me again to really get to know myself and just figure out what I wanted. After about after getting back into climbing a little bit and getting to know some people and reconnecting myself a little bit, I decided to buy a van and just go on the road. I'd always wanted to travel and go climb, but I was kind of afraid that I wouldn't be able to find drugs wherever I went, and so I just never left where I lived. And so I did that for like 3 years, and then I settled down back in Boone, kind of where everything started, and I was going to go on this redemption tour and just do all these climbs that I had lied about, and I've done a good number of them. I might not get to all of them. Some of them were pretty hefty lies, and I'm just like, damn, dude, I got to be way stronger to get this thing done. But yeah, I've been clean now for 8 years, and yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. Um, I got I have some good days, I have some bad days, but I mean, the bad days are so much better than they ever used to be, you know? And that's kind of all you can ask for. But the reason the reason I just love supporting Memphis Rocks, but I also just, I don't know, it's good to share your story because it helps people realize they aren't alone. And I still think even though climbing has changed so much since I started, it's just like, it welcomes everybody, you know? Like, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, you can just show up and have a great time. And I think events like Rockfest are a great example of that. And I'm really grateful to kind of be here. I think Memphis Rocks has opened up an avenue for people to feel like they can get vulnerable. It allows people to have a place to feel like they're accepted. And I think that's kind of rare and something that people take for granted if they do fit into places. And so for that, I'm just really thankful for you guys being here and for Memphis Rocks inviting me out. And I'm excited for the event. Thank you.